This real side experience was somewhat similar to one I shared only a month or so ago, and of a similar theme to others I have shared in the past. The basic idea of this particular type of experience is this. On the real side generally, if the personal self has decided and aligned its intent with the real intent, which is the real awareness, which is the recognition of the is that the real awareness is a part of, then overall, the real side experiences will always be of a nature which facilitates this real awareness is recognizing objective. In other words, everything that is shown to the personal self will be that which is required for the necessary viewpoints that allow a greater awareness. Firstly, then, we endeavour to become ever more so the real awareness completeness that we are, and that our awareness is increasing, we say, is that we are removing the limiting ideas, attachments and agreements which hold us in a position where our awareness is not complete, as awareness is already so, but that we step into this real awareness everything that we are, is that we face and release the ideas of the consciousness that have us in our diminished awareness positions. And if we assume a position of what is termed completing our awareness, where we step into our real awareness true self positions, we release attachment completely from the personal created self. From there, we now have the option and opportunity to recognize the is that the real awareness is a part of. For you can't attempt to recognize the true reality if you are forever removed from it by maintaining attachment to the consciousness and free will activation of the mechanics of the consciousness affecting body vehicles, thoughts, emotions, etc. But it is more so the creation or addressing or consideration of ideas, and then a shift to the real awareness position aside from the consciousness and idea generating body vehicle mechanics that allow this comparison between the two positions. As Duane has said, compare all created ideas to the sun shining as the best representation of the is. For the real awareness, as I said, is this isness true reality? And only there, standing in the real awareness true being a state, aside from the personal self, mind, emotions and consciousness, can the is be recognized. You can't recognize something if you are removed from it. And so, this back and forth between ideas of a creation to the isness, real awareness position, encapsulated idea pieces compared to the whole, the everything life is, becomes the practice by which recognition of the is can eventually be so. In addition to the process of awareness through the real side experiences, the facing and releasing of the consciousness idea construct will be the various experiences that reflect our intent placement, as intent always generates all creational simulation that reflects its nature, and so, with the personal self-intent aligned with the real intent of ears recognition, so the experiences will additionally be of a nature where we are earning our way, as it is termed, earning our awareness, doing that which benefits all life and awareness, and this reflects then as a benefit for ourselves, as our own awareness is made more so accordingly, and we will have the option to participate in the assignments, etc., that Duane and the guides have set into motion, that benefit all in this simulator, but that, like everything creationally bound, requires agreement, requires involvement and assistance to be so. As I said, all this tends to go on as though automatically on the real side, assuming the personal self has aligned its intent with the ears, and the personal self just sits back and observes what is unfolding on the real side, attempts to recall the details and share it, that others benefit also. What then would disrupt this, what is overall a process of awareness and is recognition, would be the extent to which we indulge the personal self, the extent to which we remain locked into the ideas of the consciousness, or the constant generating of thought and emotion through the body vehicles, and then we are somewhat encapsulated and contained within the effected simulation thus generated on the real side. Our experiences are not what we might call awareness bolstering, although they still can be utilized as comparisons to recognize the ears by, as this is the actual function of all creational ideas, and also as a hint as to what not to do, to remind us that since our experiences seem more personal self-generated, that perhaps an addressing of our focus and realigning of our intent with the ears is the order of the day. And so, the theme of this particular real side set of experiences, this being the latest one, would be along the lines of my not choosing to dwell within the ideas of my consciousness, to be removed from my real awareness position, and the experiences then that are awareness benefiting, but more so that the dark forces or expressions of them set up certain situations where I can be pulled into my personal self through its reactions to what they are presenting me with. So in a way, I am still choosing to be pulled into the personal self as I decide to react emotionally. On previous real side experiences, they would present me with the past life situations where my actions, choices and decisions would be less than savoury. For as we go through a creation, we play numerous roles, the villains, the good guys, etc. We are the effects of our choices, regardless of the roles we play. But ultimately, it's what we are deciding in this moment that's important, and all past lifetimes, regardless of their nature, ought to be regarded with the dismissal and indifference they deserve. interesting as references, but like all ideas, should we cling to them, we are maintaining ourselves as their effect and remaining entombed in the consciousness personal self. What would happen is that I would be shown these past lives, ones which were particularly unadmirable, and oftentimes this would elicit an emotional response from my astral vehicle. And as soon as we activate the body vehicles, we are removed from the real awareness position. The awareness bolstering experiences cease, and whatever abilities and skills we have are according to what the personal self alone knows or has developed with its consciousness as it current lifetime stands. Whereas the real awareness is unlimited in how it can utilize its simulated, created, operating in creation personal self to do whatever is necessary to carry out the experiences that are required for its overall is recognizing objective. And so we are more limited, absent of the real awareness and its unlimited capability, and more vulnerable. This being one reason why the dark forces would wish to draw us into the personal self through the emotions we create, if we do, in response to what they may show us, the past lifetimes, etc. And another reason they do this is that if they can have us embrace emotions such as guilt or shame, we are more likely agreeable to any punishments, tortures, or abuse they deem fit to bestow upon us as a result of our past misdeeds. Whereas, if they attempted to do so, as we stood in our real awareness, true states of being, we would not be agreeable, and indeed, the real awareness would ensure their efforts unsuccessful, assuming there are no agreements maintained, those yet unaddressed in the consciousness, contracts between us and our abusers, so to speak, that allow and dictate that they can. And so, in this real side experience, I would be confronted with a group of women, and they would accuse me of being their abuser. But curiously, these claims were based on choices I had made in this current lifetime seemingly. Even absent of the real awareness input, my personal self had no current lifetime memory of such ill deeds as they pertained to these women, none of which my personal self even recognized. At this point, I wasn't being drawn into my personal self, therefore, through reaction. As such, my real awareness could get its impressions across, as we can't receive them if we are locked into the personal self, and the personal self was assured that these accusations had no merit or basis in reality. But then something else occurred. I can only describe it as the implanting of memories or ideas. I had the sensation of as though files being added to my consciousness, as though you would a computer, and these files, these implanted ideas, were the experiences of the abuse I had perpetrated upon these women in this lifetime, though the real awareness impressions still assured the personal self that these were indeed false implanted memories. For absent of the real awareness, the personal self alone could not differentiate between its own experiences and those implanted through other means, just like the computer simply takes on the files added to it, and without the computer operators knowing as to the files added, the computer alone would simply accept these files as now a part of it. From a technology point of view, if the frequency of the brain can be matched, information can be installed via this frequency. Memories, ideas, even motivations and emotions can be added or incited, and the recipient couldn't determine that these emotions, these ideas or memories were not their own. And so, this was a new dark force effort to pull me into my personal self, through my personal self emotional reaction to what were implanted false memories, and despite the real awareness impressions that assured the personal self this was the case, the memories seemed so real, as though they were true, and thus I reacted with the created idea emotions of shame and guilt. Thus I was pulled into the personal self. My abilities, afforded through the real awareness, now limited, and I was more agreeable and acceptable of punishment accordingly. And so it was that the scene faded, the women now joined by a larger group of other individuals, all then either expressions of the dark forces, or manipulated and influenced by them to execute this situation, for all consciousness is overall programmed to agreement with the dark forces, and this agreement of control can be exercised in a variety of ways, this being just one of them, that individuals can be controlled, puppeteered to carry out dark force assignments and operations, even unconsciously on the real side, oblivious of what they had participated in. I would be tortured in a variety of ways, beaten, I was branded by smouldering irons with certain words or phrases that I failed to recall all over my body. Seems I was rather resigned to my situation, but like anything we experience in a simulated creation, we must decide, agree to it, for it to be so. So really, we have no one else to blame but ourselves. We create the scripts and movies, and others then have the option to fulfill the roles we have provided, if we indeed choose to provide the roles of abusers, controllers, murderers, etc. But just as it was with the other experience I shared, where an individual I had the impression was of being Ava came to my rescue, so a similar rescuer would step into the scene. On another real side experience I shared, so it seemed that a particular individual, impressions revealing that she was a guide, had assigned herself to me, and she didn't appear visually to be any guide as we have seen depicted in a drawing form, She had short dark hair, and it was this very same guide who now came to my aid, verifying that she was indeed keeping a guidely eye on me. She simply entered the scene, took me by the hand, and led me away from it, the tormentors unable to prevent her from doing so, as a guide will have no agreements that limit them in ways that allow that others can harm them in any way as they operate in creation, so they are somewhat untouchable. She led me, still by the hand. The scene faded. It became a beach setting. Some of the abusers still traipsing after us, though half-heartedly, and eventually even they would resign themselves to the fact that the game was up, and cease their less than enthusiastic pursuit. And then the scene of a torment that the guide had taken me from recreated itself, but it was as though I was afforded a simulated visual of all the individuals involved that showed more then than what I had seen previously, almost as though a glimpse behind the wizard's curtain. For all the individuals were robots, and were programmed with certain compulsions and tasks in regards to myself, certain words, actions, the various punishments administered, and a selection of responses programmed that could be utilized in response to what I would very likely say during the experience. And as the guide led me through the now transformed scene, it's as though the robots couldn't see us, though we always were mindful to keep out of their pre-programmed routes. And so, two possibilities, that these, what seemed to be on the surface people, was actually a kind of filter overlap that obscured the actuality of what they were, robots, that absent of the real awareness impressions and its ability to see through the surface to the ideas and intent behind it all, so my personal self alone only could perceive the surface front. Or perhaps this was just an over-exaggerated view of how the consciousness is very much like computer software and mechanics. You program it with the ideas you decide, or those you agree with as created by others, and the simulation is thus effected to experience. And as the consciousness of humans in particular is becoming more compressed, more controlled and compacted, there is less space for individual creation and insight beyond that which the consciousness dark force controllers allow. Consciousness is becoming ever more so regulated, limited, coordinated, that then affects overall human experience exactly as the controllers desire it to be, and consciousness always affects its nature in the circumstances and the body forms. Little wonder then that robotization is able to enter the human experience as a reflection effect of what is a very controlled consciousness, and perhaps then we might say, as things currently stand, there's little difference between a robot and a human anyway. The controlled software or consciousness is the same, just the body type differs, and these individuals in their robot forms were carrying out certain pre-designated and installed programs to execute in relation to myself. And so the experience ended there. I was once again rescued by a guide from a situation I did create through allowing my emotional reaction to what were made very apparent as installed false memories. But then, had I not gone through this, I wouldn't have the experience to share, and a heads up then that this is, yes, that which the controllers have always done, manipulating consciousness, but they are using this as a method on the real side to enable them to more successfully be able to attack us. For as I said, the reaction of guilt to the false memories had me more agreeable to punishment, and so they were able to do just this.
Okay, that was excellent, Kevin. Yes, very, very good. It explains a lot of the, you might say, matrix psychology that they create, the Montauk nonsense, mind control, etc. That's always been around. And yeah, it's a huge challenge for all of us just to be here and to deal with this and recognize all these little things that they constantly, shower everybody with in so many different ways, not only the material poisons and the food and everything else, but the subliminals especially. So they don't care about people having the so-called information and knowledge about them because they've got a huge subliminal control, and this is all they know. So yes, as we become more aware, the challenge is for those to step up who have the courage to do so and really, creatively do something and constantly say this. Constantly, it's not about just, oh, gee, I want to save my life, I want to be free, whatever. No, there's a bigger picture, much, much bigger picture. And the only way that's possible is when the person goes through all this, steps up, just like a soldier in the military. You go through the training and then you step up and you take part. That's the real part of it. So all the passive spiritual paths and religions, that's all they are. They're just passive. And people like the pretty words and feeling comfortable. It's not about feeling comfortable. You're gonna feel the pain. You're gonna feel discouraged. You're gonna go through all kinds of things, and it's okay. So they're putting you through this, Kevin, and you're delivering this presentation here, which is really great as people listen to it. But it's gonna sound like science fiction to many of them. But no, everybody's in science fiction here. This is the real science fiction, and it's a lot of friggin' nonsense to get through. But yes, at the same time, it should motivate you because it's all about intent and learning to recognize what that intent is with your real awareness and how this personal self operates while you're here. And yeah, it's a huge challenge. Huge, huge, huge. Yes, thank you, Kevin. That was great.